Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Spiritual Psychics TV and this show, Being Spiritual. I'm your host, Ashley Robinson. I'm coming from South London today. I'm a spiritualist medium and this is a spiritualist philosophy show. Being Spiritual, it's an opportunity for you to ask Ash anything. I'll be doing some free readings as well today, folks. Really keen to know who's watching the show right now and where you're watching the show from in the world. It's lovely to connect with the fantastic listeners and engage with you as the audience. If you're on YouTube, just make sure you've logged in, you're participating in the live chat. Please make sure you've shared this across your socials as well. Help us build this fantastic community that Spiritual Psychics TV UK has built up. And on Facebook, just follow the mainstream. And I look forward to say engaging with you. Now, in theory, if this all works well, as you post your comments into the chat, our producer Richard will be able to bring those comments forward to me, and I'll be able to sort of answer some of your questions. So it's always a good little test to sort of say, you know, what you had. I was going to say what you had for dinner. That's usually what you tell each other. Just tell me who's watching, where you're watching from, and I'll do a couple of sort of listener hellos and reach out to a few of you specifically. So, Speaker Man Titan, hello, good evening to you. Joins us on YouTube. So, good first early test there. Welcome, the Man Titan. Christina Koffinger, hello, hello, Christina. Elizabeth Jones, hello. Bumblebee Snuggles. Hi, Ashley. Hi, all again. Hello, Bumblebee Snuggles. Good evening to you. Jill Reynolds joins us from Birmingham. I was in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago. Jill took the kids to Cadbury's World and played a bit of rugby at Walsall. Fantastic part of the world. Diana, good evening to you. Susan Robin, good evening. Hiya, Susan. Sheena Dunscan from Scotland. At the top of the country. I was in North Wales. That was about as close as I got to Scotland over the last couple of weeks. Kerry Fawley, good evening to all the lovely people, says Kerry. Fantastic to hear from Julie Caswell, my good friend. Hi, Julie. Ronnie Bigwood, hello. Hiya, Ronnie. And the lovely Reverend Leslie Moulton. Hiya, Leslie. Good afternoon from Louisiana, says Angie. Hiya, Angie. Angie Sowell. Is it Cobello? Terry Napier from Indiana. Good evening, Terry. Terry Louise from Indiana to the United Kingdom. Hiya, Terry. Hello, Paige. Welcome. Christina Davis. Hello, my friend. All right. Ben Davis says he's liked and shared. Thank you very much, Ben. It's trying to keep SPTV free. That's the ambition. Bring spiritual people together, keep it 100% free. It's all about getting a good virtual congregation. Neva Cares. is that a real name, Neva? Good evening to you. Susie Selby. Hiya. Lovely June Malkin. Hello, June. My love to you and Dave. Clayton. There's Tarot by Clayton, a reader. Hiya, Clayton. Kylie Alice from Hull. Hiya, Kylie. I'm up Hull in a couple of weeks' time. Traveling a lot recently. Mary Dixie, my circle leader. Hi, Paige, Terry, and Ray. Hello, Mary Dixie. Good evening to you. And Daddy Ray Robinson. Good evening, son, from Mitcham, South London. Thanks for letting me know where you live, Dad and Mum. In case I forget. Tammy Mason. Good evening to you. And I'll do a couple more hellos. I won't be able to get through to everybody. Alice Fernan, good evening, Ashley. Thank you, Alice. I appreciate that. Lizzie Busy Bright, hi, love and light. Sending you some love and light too, Lizzie Busy. And sending you all some love and light. Debbie Chard joins me from South Wales. Hi, Debbie. Lizzie Parkin, first time here. Well, welcome to SBTV. Welcome to Being Spiritual. This is a spiritualist philosophy show, Lizzie Parkin. Get your spiritualist or spiritual questions ready. We can segue absolutely anywhere this evening. Your opportunity to ask me anything. And those that ask good questions, often the ones that get the reading. So I like a live and kicking audience because everyone else I speak to is already in that place I call heaven. Okay. Yeah. So in terms of questions, your spiritual questions. So I'm not a DJ. I'm certainly not a spiritualist DJ. Hiya, Krish from South Africa. I can't take requests and answer a specific question from a specific communicator in the spirit world. But what are your thoughts on spiritualist principles, philosophy? What is heaven? What is God? Those types of questions. You can ask me absolutely anything spiritual. Susanna joins us on Facebook. Also, first timer. A couple of first timers tonight. Lovely to have first time people joining us. Hopefully you'll come back. And a special hello to all the people that keep coming back. I've been doing this show now on and off, folks, for about 3 years, every 2 to 3 weeks. It's a fantastic opportunity for me to share my knowledge of life after death and the truths of spiritualism. Something my grandfather set off in 1982, about 40 odd years ago, when he formed Life After Death Promotions. It's exactly what he wanted to do. Take spiritualism out to the people and share his knowledge. And I'm proud that so many of the people I call my church family online today and get the opportunities to work with us over these sort of types of things. So yeah, ask me a question, ask me for a point about one of our principles, or what are the principles, what are my principles, what are my principles, sort of my foundation, how do I work as a medium. We can go absolutely anywhere. Healing, cards, angels, dimensions, anywhere you want to go tonight, folks, you can go. Once a month we have a show like this, which is very much sort of open in terms of the subject, and then once a month I'll pick a subject that I'll start talking to you all about, and we'll spend longer with me doing that. But tonight we're going to do readings in between the questions. So Kerry Fawley's come in with a first good question, folks. So sorry if I didn't specifically mention your name, but you've got an idea now how about all this all works. So Kerry says, can you actually hear Spirit's voice as we would another person's, or is it always through intuition you receive messages? Fantastic question, Kerry. And you'll often hear, particularly spiritualist mediums and psychic mediums, talk about clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. Clair, being the French word, effectively for clairvoyant, hearing voice, clairaudient, hearing audio, clairsentient, sort of smelling. All of the senses, the traditional senses we have, you can think of them as clairs in that way. My parlez-vous français, comme si, comme ça, as Del Boy would say from Fools and Horses, for anyone that's watched that show. My French is terrible. But the clairs are almost like those senses and how we use them as an interface to the spirit world. And indeed, Kerry, you can hear. Now, sometimes everyone in the room can hear spirits. If you think about us existing in the third dimension, planet Earth, everything that we're using our senses for, there is a frequency that energy and other things are sort of vibrating at, which means we can see it, touch it, smell it, taste it, etc. And the place I call heaven, the afterlife, I think exists probably in something I often refer to as the fifth dimension, and that the fourth dimension, the dimension between the world we're living in now and that spirit world, heaven, is like this waiting area. Some people call it limbo, and it's as spirit come close, or some people talk about the veils between the two worlds, as spirits sort of come close, that they can start to influence us. Now, as a spiritualist medium, probably 95% of my spiritualist communication actually comes through my mind's eye. So that intuition you talk about, my mind's eye, almost like a blank canvas or a blank mirror, and spirits start inundating me with often quite vivid images, Kerry, and then sometimes I will start to physically smell, physically hear, physically see. Sometimes I could be standing up in the church, standing up in this room now, and I'll see someone physically in the room. Now, from my experience, when you're physically hearing, seeing, and sort of smelling, it requires an awful lot more energy, both from the medium and the communicator, in order to sort of communicate that way. But no, I've absolutely heard it. And when we get phone calls, so I'm, as well as being a medium, Kerry, I'm a counsellor, spiritualist counsellor. Reverend Leslie Moulton actually trained me. I'm also a celebrant. So I'm in 8th month of 12 months probation as a spiritualist celebrant, hoping to be ordained as a spiritualist minister this year. And sometimes we get phone calls to go to people's homes, because if they're not working as mediums and they're hearing spirit, it freaks them out. And sometimes it's their voice, as you say, they're the spirit voice. Other times they might hear knocks, taps, scratching, perhaps. If we rewind about 175 years ago, modern spiritualism, the sort of the birth and creation of that with the Fox sisters. The Fox sisters, young Fox sisters, were hearing noise. They used to sometimes refer to that communicator as happy foot or tapping foot, because they're hearing these tappings. And they worked out that it was intelligence. It was intelligence communicating. Now, they could physically hear that. They later went on to work as mediums and pick up on other things. And you're right, it can become overwhelming. I think that because of the physical energy, and if you think about those people that work as a psychic medium, they're working purely on the energetic field without the necessity of a communicator. It can be more tiring. I know that when I work psychically, it can be more physically demanding. You go on to say that it'd be amazing just to communicate with a spirit the same way as we would someone on earth. Now, interesting, Kerry, even if you're not hearing them like that, you can speak to them that way. So you don't need to use telepathy or your intuition to speak back. So often when you see a spiritualist medium, and certainly if you see me, and if anyone's going to be in Cosham, I'm at Cape May's Mystic Cafe tomorrow night from 7 till 9 p.m. If you ever see me work physically and sort of in person, what you'll sometimes see is you'll catch me having conversations, Kerry, with the communicator. And sometimes they start to present themselves, it might be like off shoulder right, off shoulder left. And I say, what did you say? Because I'm sort of almost turning to hear them again. Other times I'm closing my eyes. A couple of weeks ago we did the show about meeting your guides, and I was trying to get a guide to present himself. It was all very much in the mind's eye, and actually my physical sight became overwhelming, so I did a lot of closing my eyes so I could see those vivid images that were being created. Now, what I noticed, having watched the show on playback, yes, folks, I'm very sad. I do watch some of the show bits on playback. Annoys my wife. As soon as she hears that, hello, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, work, she goes, why are you watching it? You've just done it. But I like to see how it sort of come across. And when I'm working spiritually, I forget 95% of the stuff I said. So it's a nice way of seeing some of the messages. Now, what I noticed is when I closed my eyes a couple of weeks ago doing the guides, some of the descriptions I was able to give to Richard were more vivid than the communicators that I often present themselves to me. Okay, I think I gave more evidence of the communicator as the guide, heights, weights, colors of eyes and hairs and stuff. So it's something that I'm going to be practicing a bit more tomorrow when I'm doing the mediumship, is to just close my eyes, surrender to that presence of spirit. But yeah, I do. I communicate as normal sometimes with them. Obviously, when I'm on my own, I don't need to talk out loud. But sometimes I'm at the church. It's easier for me because if loads of people are all trying to communicate with me at the same time, I separate them. I get my guide team separate them and go, okay, right, let's do that. Now, my principal guide that does a lot of that sorting out for me is Bob. I'm like, come on, Bob, sort them out. And Bob starts to get everyone in the waiting room and he quietens them up. And then it is like hearing, absolutely sort of hearing. And we do know that spirit hear us, no problem at all. So they can go from the fifth, fourth, and all. It could be dozens of dimensions. They can come all the way down and listen to us, Kerry. And you say, wow, it's absolutely astounding. You have that amazing gift. Thank you very much, Kerry. I do think that the gift of mediumship is a gift that we can all work with. And as an interface, we will work slightly different with it. And then it's like any other gift. The more you practice, the more investment you put in. And for me, that was sitting in workshops and circles and following the instruction leadership of a spiritual circle leader. Then you start to bring that on. Because you've asked a question, Kerry, I would like permission to read for you. And in fact, folks, going forward, anyone that asks me a question, the working assumption now is that you give me consent to read for you, and that you give me consent to do that in this sort of this public forum. Sometimes I might draw a card, sometimes it might be something more psychic, sometimes it might be something more spiritual. But I think based on this question, Kerry, I'm going to attempt to give you evidence of life after death by giving you evidence of a personality of someone that lives in that wonderful, beautiful place that I call heaven. So, Kerry, unless you say no, I'm going to assume now that you've given me that consent. So I've got a man with me, Kerry. This man claims to know you. He claims to be family, and he is telling me that he was a father. He was a grandfather as well. I believe that you would have been granddaughter to him on mum's side of the family, so mum's dad. This man is okay. Thank you. Take that away. He just gave him the sensation of a sore throat and difficult to swallow. He was also talking about what he was describing as quite a chesty cough. Last chapter of my life, I felt like I had something on my chest. I was unable to get up. I feel I've had an impact around that heart. That left-hand side of the body is taking me to Kerry around that heart. And I've had an impact there. It's been quite painful, but I also feel the lung. Okay. Not enough the lung is filled with something, some sort of growth, some sort of infection, but that left-hand side feels like it's had that impact. So, Kerry, I'm looking for you to understand a man claiming to be your family, claiming to be granddad, I think, on mum's side of the family. You say, yes, Papa on mum's side of the family. Thank you. Now, I know your family name is Forley with a T, but he's also given me the letter T. T for tango. Tut was the noise I was hearing him, and I think there'd be a significance between you and him, Kerry, with the T, because he's talking about Forley being a married name of your mum. There is a T though, Kerry, that's significant to you and him. He shows me under 6 foot in height, small to medium build, with some real strength, particularly in his forearms and his triceps, his sort of upper arms. He's presenting himself slightly younger, with slightly more hair. He had almost like an up and an over to one side hairstyle that he's showing me, Kerry. Thank you for the verification. You said he suffered from heart attacks and he was a smoker. Thank you for that confirmation. So you'd understand that he's like almost like a mouse. Somebody just said something there about mouse. I don't know if that was a colour, like a mousy brown hair that he was just talking about and showing that description. I feel like I've got these beautiful brown eyes. He said, don't forget they were beautiful. He's a real charmer, Kerry. You'd understand that. Papa was a real charmer. Brown, beautiful brown eyes. And as he was talking to me, he was talking about that. Yes, Forley is my dad's name. Okay. Yes, you'd understand the T, though, between you and mum's dad. Papa, granddad on mum's side of the family. There's another T. His hair is exactly like that. Kerry, good. Thank you for that conversation. So he's almost whispering in my ear now, and he's trying to give me that vivid explanation in his head. Right, as he links in with you, Kerry, gives me the number 4. Okay, he talks about the significance of 4, the family of 4, and you've given me verification there that your mum's side brown eyes. Okay, thank you for that. Now, the significance of the 4, the family 4. I want to talk about that. He was talking about the magnificent 4, the magnificent 4. I don't know if this is 4 children and then grandchildren, because he's doing it like layers of a cake, and I feel that he's trying to show me sort of multiple generations and now great grandchildren. He is telling me, but there was something about the significance of the 4, almost like within the family tree. There's something there to do with your mum and siblings, and I feel like the 4 is really important. I'm one of my mum's 4. Okay, you are the 4 that he's talking about in the family tree. Thank you for that, Kerry. Right, very excited about this chapter of your life, Kerry. He feels that there's been an awful lot going on. He's telling me you've had to put your big girl pants on, Kerry, and you've had to keep marching to the beat of someone else's drum. He didn't like that, like the Pied Piper. You had to follow them, but you did not choose to. They were not leader one. They were not in that place, in that seat that you decided to follow them. He's talking to me about the fact of you requiring a top up in energy. He's talking particularly around some masculine energy, and with your masculine sort of side. I know we all often think about gender as, boys and girls, men and women, but your masculine sort of energy, your energetic shield. He's giving me this sort of a glimpse of strength and courage, and he feels that you've had to be particularly courageous. Thank you, Kerry. You're confirming she now has 4 grandchildren too. Okay, that's why he kept making that significance of the 4. So you'd understand why he's saying you need a top up. Courageousness. You have been courageous. Okay, and I need to top that up for you. I need to continue to do this. Something about leaning on your father as well. Okay, and that was the. Okay, no, Forley is your dad's name, right? There used to be loads going on. He used big girl pants that term all the time. Okay, so you'd understand why I used that. I've took the reins of my own life now, and I'm feeling amazing. Well, he feels excited too. He feels excited. He tells me, Kerry, that you are exploring the art of the possible, and there's a real definition of you haven't quite defined what the future looks like, but you are determined to keep going there, one foot in front of the other, stronger, faster, fitter, and he wants to give you this extra strength and this extra courage, this courage to continue to react to the curveballs that are thrown your way. So he's very, very excited. And there's something about leaning on dad. There's something about dad teaching, dad investing skills, about dad sort of showing you, pointing the way. There's something about his instincts being quite good. Onwards, upwards, girl, onwards, upwards, that way. And about you hitting your target. Reach, pull long with that bow. Aim for your targets. You can absolutely achieve anything. I absolutely am, but I don't know which path to take, which is that I'm just learning. Yeah, well, feels like there's an element here of your dad helping you to fulfill your goals, to hit your target. And it's like upwards, onwards, forwards. Okay, Kerry? So, Kerry, that was an example of a sort of a spiritualist message. I think you've understood your communicator. And we were just chatting to him in the same way there. And he says, keep talking to me, girl. And he calls you girl, not in a derogatory way, Kerry. I think this would be like quite an affectionate way. Come on, girl. Big girl pants on. Let's get on with this. And he says, just keep talking to me. You were doing right. The mirror, Kerry, the brown framed mirror that you were brushing your hair in, and you were talking. And he said he vividly placed the image. I think it was your nana, in your mind's eye. And he says, we're hearing you. We're listening to you. Keep doing that, Kerry. You're learning that as well. There is this path of awakening within that spiritual sense. You working with those gifts too. Okay, Kerry. That was your message. Thank you very much for getting in there and asking a good question, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to start with some messages and some mediumship. So, folks, you've had an idea about that now, so you can ask Ash absolutely anything spiritual. I know very little about things like football, a little bit more about rugby, but still not enough to pad out a show. So, give me your spiritual subjects. Kim is joining us from Belgium. Hello, Kim. I bet you were insulted by my French there a minute ago. The mirror is in my cupboard. I have TT. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Kerry. God bless you. Okay, Papa says God bless you. Thank you very much for letting us read for you. Belgium, yeah, lovely part of the world. Have played a little bit of rugby in Belgium. Ostend on the beach there, beautiful part of the world. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for coming to Spiritual Psychics TV. Do make sure, folks, that you've turned on your notifications, that you find out when we're going live. There's so many wonderful things happening at the moment. Now, Geraldine comes in with the next question. Geraldine says, I lost my 20-year-old dog and it was hard. But I lost my other dog last year and he walked past me in my kitchen, walked straight out the back door. I know my 20-year-old dog saw him too. I have healing power in my hands, but at that I was actually burning all over my body. Is this something you might experience? Heat? Absolutely, Geraldine. So we've got people like Reverend Leslie Moulton, our principal tutor on spiritual healing. She'll talk about that in more great detail. But yeah, for me, when I'm working with that gift of healing, I definitely feel heat. A lot of people that receive healing also talk about that energy exchange of feeling heat, including when absent healing is sent out. And I think that, you knowing that you want to put your hand somewhere that instinctively that's telling you what to do, that is you, well attuned to those gifts. So, yeah, good question, Geraldine. I hope I've answered that for you. I've drawn a card for you, which is the skills card. Okay. Now, the skills card here shown by the crossbow with 2 arrows in the grass. Okay, now with this card, there's an element of saying, well, first of all, the crossbow slightly more powerful than the traditional bow. And actually, I feel like I want to add a bit of bam, a bit of wham, a bit of almost like 1970s Batman sort of dramatics, pow, wham. And I feel there's this real impact that I'm looking for in your life at the moment. The crossbow, and particularly with the arrows in that crossbow, you think about the quiver and the 2 arrows which are stood upright in that grassy earth, 2 arrows in the earth. Now, the arrows symbolize the skills which we are born with and the skills that also we acquire through our education. We're talking about spiritual, we're talking about that gift of healing, we're talking about that investment into you. And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about guides. I think that you'd be okay. I'm being told that you are aware of a lady who comes to you when you're performing that healing, and that she inspired me to draw this card. Now, the card therefore denotes talents. Okay. Now, we spoke about spiritual gifts Talent for me is when you become particularly good at something. Okay, so we can all draw. If you're talented, you can probably sell your drawings and you can sell your art. But there's some real strength there around talent, expertise, cleverness, and that you will use the tools. Okay, and there's this, you've got the crossbow there. You use the sort of tools in that way. So yeah, I wanted to give you that card about the skills. Keep working with the gifts, and you've got a real talent there. You just need to continue to nurture it. If you can, get yourself on a good training course with someone that can continue to help you harness that talent, focus on those strengths, Geraldine. Thank you very much. Good question, and our first sort of card drawn of the evening. And sometimes, folks, like I did then, I had a guide come in as well with the guide. Sometimes it's my guide team inspiring me to draw a card which would make sense. Sometimes it's spiritual communicators. Now, Angie Turner on YouTube said, I've tried to connect with friends who have passed, but I've not been able to. Any tips to help us get to the messages? I'll certainly give you some tips, Angie, but being honest, I think that working with your own friends and family is actually much harder than working with strangers. And a lot of that from my own personal experience, I'm going to use the word ego, right? I'm going to use it very delicately, because I'm not saying you've got an ego problem. What I'm saying is that our ego sometimes denies us the evidence from spirit. Like my nan, right? I love my nan. I love both my nans, but my dad's mum, who I'm thinking about right now, Hazel, I used to have conversations with her on the phone all the time, right? And sometimes my subconscious or my ego said, that's not your nan, that's just your memories, and you're having a conversation with yourself. Now, when I surrender myself, Angie, to spirit, and I allow my nan to come forward, I do know that it is her, and then I am able to connect with her. But one of my big frustrations as a spiritualist medium is that I'm not that DJ. Remember earlier on, Angie, I said, like, I can't take requests. The communicators decide when to communicate and if they're going to do it and how. And it's very frustrating for me. Sort of some mediums claim that they can find particular people in the spirit world. I think the closest I've got is working with you as, say, the client, and I say, right, well, send a flare gun, Angie. If you wanted to talk to someone and you need to send the flare gun, flare up in the air, turn on the lighthouse, because you can often have more luck in summoning your communicators because they're with you. They don't know me. Now, they might know then that if you book a reading with me, oh, look, Angie's got a reading with a medium, we're going to make sure that we're there at Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And I hear that all the time, actually, with communicators. But actually, it's you. The communicators are with you. Now, your friends and family, if they're able to communicate, there's no reason why they wouldn't. And what I found is that actually dedicating something to them, dedicating some sort of service, some sort of demonstration of unconditional love during the day to them will bring people closer. So if I really want to get a particular message to my nan, I want my nan to guide me, what I'll do when I wake up, I say, right, Nan, I'm dedicating this entire day to you, and everything I do by way of service, I'm dedicated to you in your memory. And I often find at the end of the day, when I thank my spirit friends and guys and all my blessings, that's the point, within that sort of 24-hour period, that my nan is sometimes able to come closer. I think our friends and family are often not that far away anyway. The other thing you can do is you can use, I think is it telekinesis? I don't want to use the wrong T. I'm being told that I've got that wrong. So it's not telekinesis. I think telekinesis is moving things. Psychometry. There we go. Yeah, telepathy. It's a totally different T. So Richard just reminded me, telepathy was the word I was thinking about. I was saying telekinesis, which is moving things with your mind. Psychometry is when you're actually reading the object. So, as my guy said, you've got that totally wrong. We don't even know what word you're trying to say. But when I remembered Shirley Monarca, lovely Shirley from the Spiritualist Church, likes to pick up objects and read them. Now, at a psychic level, Angie, if you own something, you're able to of somebody trying to communicate. Sometimes that physical energy, it's a bit like residue energy, almost like a sponge. Sometimes there's a few atoms there left of that energy, and it helps to connect. Other times, going to a memorable place, putting on a memorable piece of music or a film that triggers a memory, and then when those memories become more vivid than a memory, then you know that you've got that communicator with you. Now, the card I draw for you, Angie, is peace. Peace be with you, and also with you, Angie. I've got a a real link to a sort of Christian background here. I've got a woman that's claiming to be family, second generation. So this would be a grandmother. So this is possibly mum's mum that would have had this Christian background. It's like we were shaking hands. I'm turning around in the pew of this church, old wooden pews. Peace be with you, dear, and also with you, dear. They were just influencing me. I know I didn't actually put on a proper accent, but there was this link to Ireland there, Angie, Southern Ireland. I've got family in Wexford and Tipperary, and somewhere between Wexford and Tipperary in Southern Ireland, the middle almost. I've got links there to family roots with you, and I've got this links. I think it's within the Christianity, perhaps to Catholicism. This peace be with you. This woman. I've got either a Jean or it's like a G for golf. That could be for granny, but that lady that was coming across. Now, as the communicator was coming in and they inspired me to draw this card, they were like, she needs some peace. May peace be with you, Angie. The beautiful stained glass. My dad's mum was Irish and Catholic. Thank you very much, Angie, for that confirmation. Look at that beautiful stained glass, Angie. Flooded with light, shining into a beautiful place of worship there, place of faith and belief. Now, this card stands for peace, reconciliation, and the religious element in our hearts. It shows a healing mandala in there. If you look in the actual stained glass, let me see if I can get that a little bit closer. There we go. You've got that healing mandala, beautiful colours there, and that brings together all the opposing elements of our sort of personalities. And I want to say that there's managing some conflict within your friendship network. There's been some people that have fallen out. There's been some poor attitudes and some poor behaviors, and I feel like I've got you managing that, not resolving the conflict, but managing it. And you've certainly snuffed out some more of the toxic elements, and you're adding great value to this wider friendship circle. Well, a very relatively small network, Angie, of about 5. And I feel like that mandala there, that healing network, peace be with you. You deserve some peace. Angie, I think you've understood who your communicator was, and hopefully you've understood why they drew that peace card for you. Thank you very much. God bless you. My wife is of Irish descent. Grandparents are Irish, and mum, and my boys, I'm bringing them up spiritualist and Catholic. But I was about to do the sign of the cross because your nan wanted to do it, and she stopped me. She goes, "You're only going to do it wrong." And she was like sort of telling me off. You're only going to do it wrong. It's a very simple thing. It's a cross, but you're going to do it wrong. Okay, Angie. God bless you. May peace be with you. Thank you, Angie, and thank you for that question, and thank you for the confirmation. You said yes. Is that head smacking moment? Right, neither cares. So, how long after a person passes over can spirits stay around after? Oh, good question, neither, or never cares. I'm going to call you neither because I think you're a bit of a diva. You're a neither diva. I could be totally wrong about that. That's me as opposed to spirits, and it's a play of words. So, assuming then that this is the 3rd dimension on planet Earth as we are now, and spirit is the 5th dimension, is heaven a different place, or is it actually part of where we are now? Is it existing in the same place? We often look up. When we talk about heaven, we look up, and when we talk about hell, we look down. And for me, there's an element, even what I did with my voice there, up, down. There's an element of change in frequency, change in definition, and change in depth. And I think that actually in the universe constantly expanding in a ambition to further experience everything, that heaven is exactly the same place that we're in now, but there are these multiple dimensions, and that physically our personality is contained in the human body. And that makes a human being. The human being without personality is a corpse. And the corpse is often burnt or buried. And the personality, which is energy, cannot be destroyed. We know that. Science have proved that. You can't destroy energy, but you can change it. So the change that our body goes through after death, Well, I think that your personality exists in that place I call heaven. And that actually it stays around in this world. Often, in people die in more traumatic circumstances, but doesn't have to be traumatic. People stay around, and they're waiting for someone to maybe find their body, or if there was some sort of criminality involved in that, they're waiting for the criminality to sort of combat it, or to be solved, or for the riddle to be solved, and they can stay around. But some of the work I've done in so-called rescue sort of situations, so-called haunted houses, is often helping spirits continue to progress. Because as a spiritualist, we believe that every single soul has the opportunity to progress. And actually there's this element of progression and ascension, of evolving and going towards, the light, the brighter light. And that fourth dimension, that sort of limbo corridor, is sometimes where people find them very easy to communicate with the 3D world, and you sort of got all your friends and family in heaven in that fifth dimension. I do know that if you continue to progress, and I'm making this up now, let's say there's 12 dimensions, you can come back down, no problem at all, join us in the third dimensional world, and you can blend your energy like us with an interface. Because if you're vibrating really, really fast at dimension 12, and then on planet Earth in the United Kingdom in South London right now we're a little bit slower, the interfaces and the different dimensions, people can sink or they can rise. Okay, but people can hang around. And you often see this, as say, in traumatic situations. You often see this people without faith, or people with faith that restricted what the afterlife meant to them. Because if you absolutely fundamentally believed that after you die there would be nothing, that might be what heaven is created for you. So you think, right, I'm going to be buried and I will just be there with my body for the rest of life. We have had graveyards and the spirit there that refused to leave the cemeteries. They're like, no, there is nothing. And after a couple of persuasive conversations, they eventually go, okay, there's something, because this is something. Okay, oh, there's some lovely things over there. Oh, beautiful lights. And they ascend to the light. So yeah, how long after? Indefinitely. They can stay around forever. People refuse to leave. Sometimes they don't want to give up their homes or their houses or particular places. Sometimes places they love. Sometimes they hang around refusing to cross over until they continue to see what goes on with our sort of spirit friends. So neither the diva who never cares. I hope that that answers your question, and I shall draw a card for you. Sage. Look at this wise old man, this wise old monk. Even though he's wise, he's continuing to take a step forward. Okay, there he is in the halls of learning, continuing to take a daily advancement. Armed with the sage stick, which we often associate with an element of toxic, trying to remove something neither as a sort of toxic element of our life. But this aged old monk sits on his desk in the halls of learning, and he's making notes, and he's drawing, and he's making sketches, planning, contextualizing, plotting. All around him are the artifacts which symbolize ancient. Am I still going live, Richard? Still here?
Nadija Bajami, a proficient strategic hypnotherapist, mind coach, grief educator, accomplished Reiki master, and gifted psychic medium, extends a warm invitation to join us on an exploration during a 4-week introductory mediumship course. As a special privilege, this extraordinary opportunity is being offered to our esteemed VIP members without any associated costs. Immerse yourself in the art of refining your innate talents and finding balance in communion with the realm of spirits. The course begins on Sunday, November 5th, at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and details will be placed in the VIP lounge. For more information on becoming a VIP, visit sptv.uk. Spiritual Psychics TV presents a wonderful evening of mediumship and trance. Our evening is hosted by Nick Brown with guests Bill Hughes, Glenda Marie, David Hale, and Minty May. Our exciting event is being held at the Little Port Village Hall, which is in Ely. The date for our magical showcase is Saturday the 9th of September. The price is only £10, which includes refreshments. For ticket information, please visit myspiritualevents.com. Tomorrow night from 8 p.m, SPTV is joined by another guest who will be demonstrating their mediumship abilities by offering free readings to our viewers. This Sunday from 11 a.m, Wimbledon Spiritualist Church hosts the Divine Service with online and on-location readings. Start your day with Nick Brown this coming Monday morning from 11 a.m, with guests, readings, live interaction, and debatable topics.
Hello, folks. Sorry, I'm having a few technical problems at home. I was just reading for Never Cares, Neva the Diva, and I was talking about the sage. So if I do cut out again, folks, bear with me and I will join back on my mobile phone. But we were talking about that ancient wisdom, and we were talking about the fact that the sage in particular is now advising us to draw on the traditional store of wisdom that has come down through the ages. It stands for received authority. Okay, it stands for family traditions and professionals. And although we often think about sage as removing that toxic element, I think that actually in this situation, Neva, that there's an element of rely. Around you, you have the wisdom to lean on. Take their knowledge, ask them for help. It's not a sign of vulnerability or weakness. And you've got everything you need around you. Okay, Neva. So that was the card that I drew for you. And good question. So thank you very much for asking that question. And keep the questions coming, folks. You've seen some great adverts about some other fantastic things happening on SPTV UK. And thank you for those of you that are sharing the show. It's a great way of building this this wonderful congregation. Now, Paige just comes in now on YouTube, says, how do I know I've done enough to go to heaven? The simple answer, Paige, is that if heaven is the afterlife, then I can answer that for you now, because I believe that we've all done enough to go to heaven. Thinking about my Irish Catholic sort of side of the family, there is an element of Jesus dying for our sins, about us having to do a certain amount to get into heaven. I think that, with all great respect, it was Jesus being misquoted and misunderstood, because I think that actually, if heaven is the place we go to after the change that our body goes through called death and our personality survives, that's where we all go to. And there are various levels and dimensions, and we've all got the opportunity to progress. And I say everyone. So even very nasty, very evil people will eventually, it might take tens of thousands of years, have the opportunity to progress. Now, another show, I've spoke about the concept of karma, and another show about reincarnation and why people might continue to reincarnate to work off some of that sort of karmatic debt. But let's assume that we all end up in that place I call heaven then. Now, heaven's going to mean whatever heaven's going to mean different things to different people. Jehovah's Witnesses will probably have a wall around their bit of heaven, and they might think that they're the only ones up there. Everyone will be given the tour and asked to be kept quiet as they walk past the Jehovah's Witness kingdom, because if that's what they need heaven to be for them, then that's what heaven will be. Very bad, dark, evil people. Are they there mixing and socializing with us at the sort of meeting and greeting, the welcome from the hotel manager? No, I don't think so. I think they end up in a prison of their own making. Now, my 5-year-old son, Noah, gave, when we were talking about philosophy of this the other day, he actually said to me, Dad, it's like a police station in heaven. The angels have all the cells, and really bad people, they still go to heaven, but they end up in a cell in heaven, and they're looked after by the angels, and they're fed, and they're watered, and they're taught. And if they do really good behavior and they start to learn, then eventually they leave that cell, and it's only after they leave the cell they realize they were never really trapped there like a hell, but they, as their higher self, something bigger than them, had actually put them there themselves while they were working through that. And that actually anything negative, anything dark will be unable to progress. You'll have to work off that darkness and that negativity. So we all go to heaven. If you want to progress, you'll have to look at everything you've done, because for every act of kindness and unconditional love, there's that cause and effect. For every bad thing we do, for every negative thing we do, there's a negative. There's that yin yang. You need the balance, but actually, it's only when we get there that we do judge ourselves. Paige, I think we judge ourselves, we put ourselves on the scales, and we see whether or not we genuinely lived a reasonably good life. And actually, it might be one of the explanations about why you would reincarnate and have a harder life. What if you did this life and you're like, I had it so easy and I exploited so many good people to have that life, that I'm going to go back and I'm going to be one of those hard people that makes someone else's life easier. I think that there is an element of choice in reincarnation. Not everyone has to reincarnate. Not everyone does. Some might do it immediately. Some might do it once. Some might do it tens of thousands of times. People might have been doing it repeatedly tens of thousands of times. But I think all of it's possible. It's just my humble and personal opinion, not officially endorsed by SPTV UK. Everything we do on the show, folks, as hosts, is our humble opinion, and I encourage you all to have your own humble opinions. But Paige says this makes a lot of sense. And the card I've drawn for you is the stars card. Okay, and look at those beautiful stars. Look at that constellation. Thinking about the meaning of the universe and a new understanding, Paige, of the universe. First of all, we just spoke about heaven being high, and I want to encourage you to look up, look for something bigger than yourself. The pattern of the stars, all of the pattern makes sense. All of the, I feel like the astronomy charts, and tomorrow when I'm in Cosham and Portsmouth, I'll be working with Kate May, who's a fantastic astrologist, and she works a lot with tarot cards, and then we've got a few tarot readers on tonight. All of the signs, I'm a birthday September, I'm a Libra. I think all of those stars have an element of when we choose to be born, when we are choosing to incarnate. And I think this card has been drawn as a result of that influence, Page, about you having this understanding of the universe. But ultimately, for me, as Ash Robinson, on the 18th of August at 10 to 9, it's like, I don't really understand. I've not been there. I've not been into space as a human being. What does it all mean? What is this sort of star-studded mystery of the night sky? And the stars stand for an individual's deepest aspirations, Page. So in this sense, your deepest aspirations are reflected in this card. It's about your inner goals. It's about your aspirations. It's about your target, your level of investment into you, your intellectual in particular. I want to focus on your intelligence, your intellectual and your artistic aspirations and your achievements, because I feel like you are an achiever, Page. You've already delivered. You're a delivery focused person. You've achieved an awful lot. All of this now intertwines with each other, and as we think about that together, we think about the external parts of our nature and the stars. As represented here is the astrological cycles that we pass through over and over and over and over again throughout our lives. And I want to talk about the fact that all of this in this card is being represented. It all links up, Page, and it all makes sense. And you're onto something here, Page. You are onto something. Absolutely. So, Page, thank you very much for asking that question. I hope you've understood the card which I drew for you. Okay, we're going to take next question. Hello from Slovenia. I really like listening to your show. I was going to say Natalie, so it's Natalia. I think Natalia Bracey. I like hearing from you too, and all of my lovely listeners. I love answering listeners' questions. So thank you very much, Nat. Oh, wow. So producer just said there's about 40 odd questions which have all come in now. So I won't have time to answer all of those, folks. So he's trying to pick a couple of questions that we haven't had before here. It's like roulette for me because he can see all the questions. I haven't got a clue what he's about to answer. It's suddenly appearing on my screen. I'm asking my guide team to help me answer it. My principal guide with my philosophy, folks, is a guy called Ralph A. Steadman. Wonderful Ralph. And I have like an executive committee of folks which advise me. So, Bobby Joe, am I pronouncing that right? Bobby Ejo Medina. If you pass away through an accident, does the spirit get stuck, or is there another spirit waiting for them, or they're alone and confused? Right. Good question, Bobby. I've had evidence from different people that have passed in accidental and quite sort of tragic circumstances, and almost every time it's been slightly different. So, and I'll be very careful about how I say this. Right? Hypothetically, Bobby, the accident may not have been accidental. Hypothetically, there could have been an element of destiny at play, and hypothetically, that may have been where we chose to exit this life and go back to heaven. Hypothetically, I'm not saying that I always understand how that would be the case, but we have free will. Other people have free will. We might be on a path of destiny where we're meant to live a much longer life, and someone else's free will, like drink driving, bosh, takes us out of the game. Right? And actually, our experience has not ended. So, if it was meant to be, then our spirit team will be there waiting for us because it was all part of destiny. If it was not meant to be, spirit is still aware. First thing is, we all have at least one guide. We all have a principal guide that is with us from the moment of conception right through to the moment of death. And because they're with us every single moment of the life, they are there for us as soon as we pass. And the spirit world are always attuned to what goes on. Now, sometimes they have to muster teams quite quickly. So I remember the awful tsunami that happened in Sri Lanka one sort of Boxing Day. And I had evidence from the spirit world that says, we didn't know that was going to happen. Right? Mother Earth didn't tell us. We weren't aware. And when it did, we had to, put out the alarm bells and get all of our doctors and nurses to go and help all the doctors and nurses and all the rescuers in the UK and everyone else that went to sort of go and do the rescue. We were dealing psychologically with the trauma of people that had lost and not come over as full families. But they did it dynamically because in the spirit world, Bobby, all they need to do is think something. Boom, it happens straight away. It's much harder for them to influence our world in the 3D world, but in the spirit world, all you need to do is think it and it happens straight away. So there is always someone from the spirit world to be there. When someone is going through like a longer illness, it tends to be someone much closer to us in the family tree. And I've been by the side of people's beds as they've gone through that final transition and their body dies. They go back home. And actually you get mums, dads, nans, granddads, brothers, sisters, kids, dogs. Once someone is dying, they know that change is coming and the spirit world start to come. And actually, folks, if you Google it, there's thousands of articles of hospice, sort of end of life care, doctors and nurses saying that in almost every situation, they hear their patients going through those final moments of death talk about life after life. They talk about people that from that world that have come to get them. And some scientists will say, oh, that was just all psychological. Their body knew they were dying and it created a nice memory for them. But it happens all over the world, regardless of faith and belief, that there are people there. So yeah, they'll have someone there, their principal guide, friends and family. The beacon goes out and people will start to arrive and be there. Often in an accident, there's so much psychological trauma. You've been severed so quickly from your physical being, your vessel, that you're not in a great state, and that actually you end up going off for a bit of psychological TLC, tender loving care. You get looked after, and even if your lifestyle and your decision means that you go through that way. So my godson made a decision to take his own life in May this year, and he did so thinking at the time it was the only thing that he could do to get over the pain he was going. I like to think that every suicide is preventable. We've done everything reasonable to give him that option. But at that point, he didn't want help. He wanted to go through that change. Now, as soon as he got there, he got the psychological help and support that he finally needed, and he had a lot of work to do. So I've had confirmation that even though most people in the physical world did not know that he was going to do what he did when he did it, I'd actually spoken to him about 12 hours before he died, and I had absolutely no idea, despite knowing that he had been suicidal before that. Spirit world, on the other hand, they knew straight away, and they were there. And they were there to look after him. And I know for my godson in particular, it was his grandfather. And his grandfather was there and he said, I'm so sorry you've come home so early. You weren't meant to. But what are we going to do with you? It was that sort of conversation. I've had that as evidence from his granddad. I've also had that evidence from him. I've had that direct, and I've had it through other mediums. So yeah, absolutely, Bobby. No one's ever really alone. The spirit world are always with us. There are some beautiful Hollywood sort of shows where they've tried to recreate this. And one of my favorite was Highway to Heaven, when you had the walking angels. And you had what they used to call the angel of death on that show. But when someone was close to death, even in tragic situations, that spirit world had no idea it was going to happen, because they don't really do fortune telling, because although there's an element of destiny at play, the future's being written every single second. Because if I'm about to draw one card, well, and I don't, then future's not written. Now, real destiny people will go, Ash, you were always meant to draw the other card. That what actually happened, what was meant to happen. So it gets very, very confusing. But the spirit world are close. And they are biased. They are near us. They are with us, Bobby. And the card that I've drawn for you is this card. It's the Sun card. I love this card. Look how happy the sun is. Now, the sun rises in the east every single day, and it sets in the west. And I want to say there's an element of repetition involved in you going through the motions at the moment, Bobby. You'd understand why I'm talking about this repetition. But we're blessed. Blessed be are we for the sun who rises in the east and sets in the west. Now, this sun stands high up, and it's over a harvest field. Okay, so here we are, harvest time in the autumn. We've got children playing around the maypole, very British sort of medieval terms. But you look at that harvest field with all the wheat, the ripe corn, the cornflowers, children skipping around the maypole in celebration of the fertility of the land. Blessed be, blessed are we. The sun, and this card in particular for you right now, Bobby, it stands for power, and we give you this power. It stands for energy, and we give you the energy. We give you the love. The creative forces behind the universe, Bobby, I send your way, and the spirit world sends your way. Now, sometimes the sun is often seen as a male card. I spoke about male and masculine energy earlier on. But in this sense, with the sun, you think about confidence, success, influences, and it represents the conscious power of intellect. Okay, Bobby. So that card is for you. Thank you very much for your question, and I hope that card made sense to you, Bobby. I hope you don't mind me calling you Bobby. Bumblebee. What happens to miscarriage babies? Do they end up coming back in person life in either the same lifetime or another one? Good question, Bumblebee. And I will talk to you a little bit about my personal experiences, as well as what I understand from a philosophical point of view, because I'm absolutely blessed now to have 3 boys, bundles of joy and demolition. I've got a little baby, he's about 17 months old now, a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And we tried for 10 years for Ethan, our eldest. And before we gave life to Ethan, we conceived 2, maybe 3 times. And the National Health Service in the United Kingdom would describe that as a failed pregnancy. And certainly as I grew up, I remember hearing the term miscarriage. And I thought it was extremely rare. And it wasn't until we started having failed pregnancies and miscarriages, and we started talking about it, that we found lots of parents had also gone through the same thing. Now, actually, it's quite sad, but it's more common than you might think. This got me fascinated, because the first time that we had the failed pregnancy, it was very early on into the pregnancy. And I remember, even as someone that never had children before, it's like people talk about the first 12 weeks, it's still being quite sort of delicate. Little miracles need to take place every single day. Well, actually, little miracles need to take place every day for the 9 months. I think it's incredible, everything that needs to come together. And I spoke to my friend Ralph Steadman, who I just said to you is one of my philosophical guides. While he was alive, I asked him about consciousness and personalities. And he said to me that if you call it the spirit or the soul, he said he doesn't believe that the spirit actually joins the physical baby until about 6 months. Because if the body is a vessel, in order to be strong enough to contain the personality of all the different interfaces of emotional intelligence, spiritual self, physical self, all of those different interfaces, the little baby needed to be around 6 months in Earth days old in order to contain the personality. But At the point of conception, Bumblebee, is new life. And spirit beings can choose. They can choose their parents. They can choose the moment of conception. It's after 9 o'clock, so I don't need to do the full birds and bees, but people need to have sex, or they need the products of sex, the egg and the sperm, in order to make the baby. That point of conception where the egg is fertilized by the sperm, that is the point that spirit being comes together. And you've got the masculine energy of the sperm, the female energy of the egg. As that interfaces to fertilize the egg, that's the point that a spirit being, almost like a beam of light, starts to come in. And think about it like an umbilical cord, not the physical umbilical cord that now starts the baked bean size sort of egg that's starting to grow in life. But think about it in the spirit world, them choosing to be, them being allocated their guide, the guide dedicating this person's earthly life, including the first sort of 9 months of the pregnancy. And in the spirit world, imagine a spirit's nursery, okay? And nurse comes out, holds the hand out, and at the moment of conception, light starts to form. And over the 9 months of the little baby human being coming on, the first 6 months of that, the personality of the spirit being is held in the spirit world with an interface back to the baby. And at 6 months, the soul of the spirit being starts to come down as a human being. And then at the physical point of birth, it's all there. Now, depending at the stage that the pregnancy is unable to continue, depends on exactly what happens. Now, sometimes the spirit being can decide, right, that didn't work. Mummy wasn't strong enough for me this time. I'm going to do it the next time that they conceive. I've had evidence of spirit beings trying immediately again, because they're like, I've chose my mummy and daddy, or my mummy and mummy, or my daddy. I've chose that moment to be, and I'm going to wait for it again. Other occasions, because the spirit being is still being held in that spirit nursery, they make a decision to stay where they are. So with the first pregnancy that my wife Claire and I suffered, that miscarriage, that failure, we know that that little girl continued to grow up in the spirit world, and it was very early on in the pregnancy, 5 maybe 6 weeks, I think, first time since the point of conception. But for 9 months they developed in the spirit world, and then they were brought up in the spirit world. They went to spiritual, almost like an orphanage, but they were looked after by my friends and family already in the spirit world. And we've had evidence of that little girl to say that she's decided to grow up in comparison to Earth years, because in spirit world they don't need to age, they don't have a physical body, but she recreated a spiritual body of herself, and she stayed very, very little girl, maybe the age of about 1 or 2, for about 10 years. It was only when Ethan was born that she decided to grow up at the same rate as Ethan. And between her being conceived and Ethan being born in about 2015, my wife was pregnant with twins. Now, I believe that we were pregnant with a boy and a girl. It was so early, only about 12, 13 weeks. It was impossible for human intelligence to determine. But again, I've had confirmation from the spirit world that my wife has been unable to carry girls, and that those twins were not going to survive. And again, they decided to stay in the spirit world and continue to grow up and develop. And again, once Ethan was born, they made a decision to stay at this very, very young age. And then actually it was only when Oscar, who's my third son, was born, that the twins have decided to grow up. Okay. Now, I still get snippets of information about this, and we've have special names, which I won't mention online today, because they're almost like little passwords or code words for me that associate me with the life force of those beings. And then a wonderful lady called Shirley Monaco, who I mentioned a little while ago, when my wife was pregnant with Oscar, when she was almost about to give birth, Shirley, who is a gifted automatic writer and poet, she said, I've written a little poem for you. I call it Heaven's Gate. And it is about, I'm just trying to look it up while we're talking now. It was a little poem which I'm going to show you now, and it gave me confirmation of what I thought. Okay, backed up some of my philosophy. So let me just read this to you, folks. I'm in the dark and in the warm, just waiting for my time to be born. My mummy and daddy waiting for me. I chose them for me to be. Two little brothers patiently wait, for I said goodbye to them at the gate, until it was right for me to join. The time's not long for us to wait, for me to join through the waiting gate. So that's by Shirley Monaco, a lovely lady that our church in Wimbledon. And for me, that was saying that Oscar, Ethan, and Noah as beings met their sisters and their brother in the spirit world. They all chose us as parents, and they chose their moment. They decided, perhaps, if the physical parameters on Earth would allowed, we would have had all of those kids. But Oscar, being the last one to leave heaven, I said the last one, that from my spiritual sense. My wife's still saying, don't you think it'd be nice to have four? I think I'm blessed with three. Oscar, as he left through that gate in heaven, everyone in heaven said goodbye to him. In the same way we mourn people that leave earth and go to heaven, I think they do exactly the same in heaven. And I about an hour after my wife gave birth, I read that poem to her. Both her and the midwives started crying, and it was that little bit of extra confirmation for us that those type of things going on. So, Bumblebee, I understand having names. Yes, thank you very much for that question. I hope me sharing my personal story as well added some context to that. Yeah, they can try again. They can look to reincarnate, and like a vessel. I'm being told. So, one of my guides, Ralph, is saying to me, think of it like a taxi. So the spirit being's waiting for a taxi, and there's a beautiful Disney animated film called Soul. Where they sort of they jump down to planet Earth, and it's like if that conception wasn't strong enough for them to physically interface at the 6-month period, then they'll come back and they do it again. They just jump straight back in. Bit like a taxi, so that makes sense to me. Right, the card I draw for you is the body. Now, really interesting, isn't it? Of all the cards I could have drawn, we've been talking about children and babies. Look at that physical interface. Look at the physical body, and then in the background is like a close-up of all the veins, of all the different sort of bits of the body. Human body there, in all its in almost all of its glory. And I think that for me, I often associate this card with health. So with permission, I'd like to send you some healing. We all benefit from some healing and some love and light. But this body card has been stripped of the outer layer, and the card itself is showing all the muscles and the veins running through the body. Now it's on a squared background of the enlarged veins, all shapes of red and blue. Now, red we might associate with blood and veins, but blue. Now, the card initially stands for the physical makeup, indicating health and body well-being or lack of it. It also implies rhythms of our body which govern our health and happiness together with the meridians. Now, for me, when I draw this card for you, I think it was really important about talking about the interfaces. And I will do a show. I could probably dedicate to all this, but if you can imagine that, when we're talking about the baby, we're talking about the health. We've got the spiritual being, okay, it's like the spirit or the soul. We've got the emotional. We've got the intelligence. We've got the physical self. We've got the spiritual self. All of these things are almost like silhouettes. Imagine like a Russian doll, and each time something else interfaces and joins in, all of that develops. As the baby's developing, and around the 6-month period, it's the last few sort of finishing touches really on baby. And I draw the body card for you. I instinctively wanted to send you some healing and some love and some light, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I want to say thank you very much for asking that question. An important question, and I've got quite emotional thinking about lost children, and I said not really lost. We know where they are. We know they're in heaven. I know that they're cared for. I sometimes ask for evidence of them, and I know that if they chose names, if they sort of chose in on things, and I often get told it doesn't matter because they've now having a life as a spirit being, but it's a different life because as a spirit being. Imagine this glass. Glass is full of water. And imagine that the physical glass represents heaven, spirit world, and the water is a bit of that. Now, a little bit of that drop comes out, put it into my mouth. So I haven't destroyed the water. It's changed. It's now been absorbed into me. Okay, a bit like conception. the energy of the spirit world joins and is interfaced into that world. If the spirit being can't develop a personality in that body, then they have the choice to carry on as a spirit being and have that experience, or to go through and create a spiritual replica of their body and then grow up and develop. And they can do that at rapid speed. They could do 50 years in 50 minutes probably, or they could do 50 years in 10,000 years. My guide team that sits on my committee, Bear, has only been in the spirit world. He died off the coast of Virginia, 1700s, I think. He is more advanced in the spirit world than Sai, that's been in the spirit world almost 10,000 years since his last incarnation. It's like 4,000 or 5,000, I think, BC or something, that Sai in ancient Mongolia, just after the last sort of ice age 10,000 years ago. He just didn't want to develop, so he just carried on living the life that they had lived. All of that, is relative to them and their own development. Okay, I will just quickly answer Angie's question. So Angie says, I wish I could hear from my baby sister. How do you get rid of bad spirits when you connect to someone? Angie, this all starts with discipline of a guide team. So if you can, find a circle leader, sit in a circle, go to a spiritualist church or centre, work out who your mediumship guide is, who your gatekeepers are. We did some meditations a couple of weeks ago, actually. So look back on playback, you'll find a show all about meeting your guides. And we gave some artificial intelligence representations of what those guides might look like, because your guides do all this for you. Okay. So bad spirits, unless I absolutely invited them to, which I don't plan to, get nowhere near me. I've got Bear, my Native American Indian guide, who works as a bit of a gatekeeper for me. But Bob, who was a godfather figure to me while he was alive, and a boxer and a spiritual healer, he's like my doorman. Okay, he's right on the door to the waiting room. Bear's beyond the waiting room, finding people to bring to the waiting room. Sai is often one of my healing guides. He's helping keeping me topped up. In fact, he's just telling me about sort of time now, and he's making sure that I'm fit and well. He was a medicine man when he was alive. Beyond that, I have a physical security team. I've got what I refer to as my special forces. I've got a forward intelligence team that would kind of parachute in high altitude, low open into territory that I'm about to go to, a so-called haunted house. They put in reconnaissance, do surveillance for me, tell me if there's anything bad, work out what's there. Then they send in, the quick reaction force. I always think about the army sort of terms there. So special forces have gone in, Halo. Now they've got the surveillance. I've got the extra intelligence. Quick reaction force come in. They deal with that. And then by the time I go there, bad spirits get nowhere near me. Now, when you watch shows and stuff on the TV, talk about spirit pushing the mediums and the psychics, I personally don't believe that's possible if you're working with your guide team, unless, of course, you want them to do it because it's really great for telly. And I think that to a certain extent, we spoke about talent. If we can all work with spiritual gifts, working on telly requires another talent. And if you're a TV personality, it needs to be entertaining. Otherwise, people won't watch it. So there's an element of people, mediums, being a bit more theatrical in the way that they're doing it. Very powerful sort of bad or negative spirits still won't get anywhere near me unless I want them to and I allow them to, because, darkness is always extinguished by light. And I would have to leave the confounds of my security to go and do that. Now, sometimes when I've had to do the rescue work, it becomes a bit more vulnerable and I pick up on some of the bad energy or the negative energy. But I do that with human beings as well. Angie, and you would have come into contact with that, I'm absolutely sure. So I'll give a quick message for you, Angie. I do have a woman with me. Now, you've said baby sister. I've got a woman that's claiming to be family. She is using sissy, okay, almost like, but not sister, okay, sissy, letter S, Sierra, sissy. I've got a lady that young lady claims to be family. She's given me the numbers 1 and 9. I think 19 is significant. I don't know if it's a door number. She is describing herself to me as tall, just under 6 foot, about 5'9", 5'10", strawberry blonde hair with a central parting. The hair is down at the moment. She's got one eye is blue and one eye is green. You see, I'm closing my eyes now to try and get more of a vivid impression. Now, this is a person that I think has created a spiritual version of themselves in the spirit world, and that's the 19 on the door number, Angie, that should be significant to you and them. She's talking about the fact that she has not walked that earthly life, okay, that she has developed spirit side, but this person is definitely family to you. So you'd understand a pregnancy that's either not gone full term, and this young lady that's talking about growing up, that's giving me this description, which is what she has decided, but she is telling me is atypical within family traits. Now, as I look at your photograph, Angie, I see almost like a sort of tanned sort of skin and dark hair. She was sort of showing me almost sort of quite pale with strawberry blonde hair. But you'd understand this as a family trait with this lady, and that she would say, "I'm right. I must trust her that she was right," and you would understand that. You'd understand the 19. You'd also understand the numbers 2 and 3, 23 from a date. I feel I'm possibly in August. We're on the 18th of August now. I want to fast forward to the 23rd of August. The 23rd is significant for you, Angie. There's something going on because I'm having that ring in a calendar for you. I feel like the 23rd of August. Yeah, August 23 is an important date. I've also got dad. I was hearing dad. And I was hearing it like an SOS, like it's almost like a Morse code, but I'm hearing it as dad. I'm over and over again. SOS. And I've got this flare that's gone up. We were talking about the army. There's something about your father or father figure to you, Angie, and I want something right now. I mean, by all means, call them and check on them, but I want something past within the last 5 to 7 days, last week. This man that has been this father figure to you, and there was a reason to summon help, needed some help with something. So that was quite important. Right, I've given you quite a bit of evidence there, a lot to digest, Angie, but I'm hoping you understand who your communicator is, and that you'd understand the significance of why they're talking about this male figure in your life right now that's alive, this father figure that's required help, and I had this SOS. That was quite important to them, and you understand these family traits. Because, Angie, that was just a little message for you there, and I hope that all makes sense. She says, "I'm still here," so I'm hoping that that all makes sense. Just give me a yes if it all makes sense, Angie, and if it doesn't, I might have a quick moment or two now to see what it is. As a good spiritualist, I'm going to say, always take each no as a challenge and get to the bottom of the truth. But got this young lady with me, Angie, that's absolutely convinced that you will understand all of this, and hopefully it will. Folks, it's been wonderful to work with you tonight, to connect with you all, to go through and answer some of your questions. I say Richard said there was about 40-odd questions I hadn't had the chance to answer. If you head over to the SPTV fan page on Facebook, or if you can find me across all of the socials at Ash Robinson Medium, I will try and answer your questions in slower time over the next month. As I said, I've got a full-time job. I've got 3 little kids. It's summer holidays at the moment, so we've been off doing all sorts of things, which is why I've been traveling so much. Okay, so Andrew said, I'm not sure who she is. Okay, so thank you, folks, for the opportunity. Head over to Spiritual Psychics TV fan page. Head over and find me at Ash Robinson Medium. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and good night. God bless you all.